Arcade Perfect by Arse.
Right, okay folks, welcome to another Arcade Perfect by Arse. It's been a wee while. Now I am kind of not so much scraping the bottom of the barrel, so to speak, from a sort of quality point of view, but I think I've pretty much covered every arcade game that I kind of was like aware of, games that I actually played. So now I'm now kind of hoovering up the remaining scraps of games that I've never featured. But yeah, I've never featured this one. This is Mercs by Capcom. Now I think it's suffice to say it was kind of the spiritual successor to Commando. You know, it was a vertical. Well, to be fair, I was going to say vertical scrolling. Commando was a vertical scrolling shoot 'em up. Technically, that's what it is. Instead of a ship or a plane, it's a Commando. This one does have a bit of, well, it's predominantly being vertical scrolling. It does move from left to right as well. The graphics are more detailed. I was going to say better. Personally, I prefer the sort of pixelated look of Commando. But this was like I think this was like a new system, new hardware that Capcom had that offered like really detailed graphics. If you imagine sort of like Commando would have been like an 8-bit type game, this looked more 16-bit. Now one thing that this game does offer over the original Commandos, it does get to play simultaneous 2 players. Never actually played this in arcade, never seen one of these in the wild, never played it with any of the retro games that I've been over the years. Obviously I'm playing it from MAME here, so you know, you're seeing which ones do you like. I presume it's just a standard joystick. Yeah, this one here, it does offer some gimmicks, and that's what I'm going to call it. You can drive Jeep. Never, yeah. There's a lot more power-ups, you can upgrade your weapon. In Commando, you've only got a machine gun or grenade. So it was very much this game kind of went hand in hand with all the scrolling beat-ups, things like the final fight, you picked up hamburgers and all that kind of stuff. I wasn't really in arcades at that point. I kind of moved away. I never really had arcades near me anyway, but yeah, I wasn't arcades very much. So yeah, sort of when this came out, I was going to say early 90s. But yeah, it's very, it's a pretty looking game. There's absolutely no way we're getting away from it. So yeah, let's that's the arcade one. Let's take a look at some home versions. So the first one we're going to look at is the ZX Spectrum one. Yeah, obviously, I don't know why I say this because it's never going to not be kind of monochrome. Well, this is technically not monochrome. It's got a few bits of colour in it. Yeah, I mean, graphics are quite detailed. That's the one thing about the Spectrum. The resolution that they used in all these games was always much better, much higher resolution than any of the other 8 bits. You know, the C64 Amstrad one. They've tried to the enemy sprites. I don't know why they've not done the main character, but the enemy sprites they've got 2 colours. They've got yellow or skin tanned, and they've got a dapper pair of green trousers on, combat trousers, I would imagine. Whereas the sprite you can controls just a single colour. So yeah, I mean they've tried to kind of make it as colourful as possible, which is to be commended. There is a bit of colour clash going on when you see the enemy sprites kind of overlapping. There is a wee bit of colour clash, which is to be expected. but not bad. I mean, it's I don't really know what I was expecting. I think, and it's crashed. Yeah, it's crashed. Right, okay, that was the Spectrum one. Let's move swiftly on. This is the Sega Mega Drive. Now, I think we're going to expect pretty much a good arcade perfect version, I would imagine. Now, like a lot of these console versions, they always had, or a lot of the time, they offered the original arcade version, but then they would also offer like an original, and they would feature extra levels, weapons, whatever. So this one's pretty authentic so far. It's got a little intro screen of the White House. Ah, that'll be the main bomb then, I've just wasted. Right away you can see, yeah, it's pretty good graphics. You wouldn't expect really anything else, to be fair. Nice bit of parallax scrolling as well. Hamburger. Don't think it's quite got the colour of the arcade one, but it's pretty close. It's quite a short level. I always thought that was quite an interesting thing. The level is, yeah, normally, you know, these things are difficult, but I don't know whether they deliberately gave you a first opening level, saying that I've just died, to kind of get you in thinking, oh, I'm actually quite good at this game. Now, I didn't actually notice whether the Spectrum one had 2 players. Should have paid attention. I didn't notice that actually. I don't see any reason why it wouldn't have. Tiny bit slow down there. Don't know what's going on there. Yeah, I think as video games evolved, the consumer became ever more disconcerting. They wanted more for their money, so they weren't prepared just to shoot things on a screen. They wanted a bit of variety, and that's why games kind of changed to try and meet the demands of the customer. You know, offering power-ups, different kind of control mechanisms. I'm very much old school. I prefer keep things simple. So yeah, that was the Sega Mega Drive. That was, you saw the interface of the Mister. That's what I record all these videos on. Now the Mister does offer an almost authentic, 100% authentic experience to real hardware. Now this is a C64 one. I don't think I've ever actually played this, if I'm being honest. I had moved on. I think this was quite a late game in the C64 and the Spectrum's life. Now, first impressions, I'm pretty impressed with this. It's very colourful, it's fast, it's got some decent music. like a lot of C64 games, you invariably had the choice between music and sound effects. On the very odd occasion, you would have both. But obviously the C64 had 3 channels, and so if it was using one for the sound effects, you would only have 2 channels for the music. Obviously, they got cleverer and they were able to kind of emulate, get the SID chip to sound like it had more. But never a fan of music in arcade games. Yeah, this you really want to play. When you're playing an arcade game, you really want to play it with sound effects, because sound effects are very integral. They're an integral part of actually being able to survive and get past, because it gives you notifications when things are happening on screen. Obviously, as games became more complicated, more detailed, then they became multi-loads. And that was one thing I couldn't stand. I mean, I was lucky enough to have a job at the time, and I had my C64. I did buy a disk drive pretty early on, and yeah, I never really had to bother with multi-load tapes. I don't think I could be an arse with that. Now, at least, yeah, the C64 one is attempting to have the vehicle. You'll notice there it doesn't appear to it doesn't appear you can actually drive diagonally. You can only drive either left and right or up and down. Yeah, the music. I mean, the music's nothing wrong with the music. But it feels like you're playing a game with the sound turned down and you're listening to a record. You know, that's maybe just my personal opinion. I always prefer to have sound effects. But I have to say, I'm quite impressed with that one actually. Right, back to the Sega hardware. This is the Master System one. Now, I never had a console until much later on. I mean, I never had the Master System, didn't have a Mega Drive until years later. And it's interesting. The Master System had a really nice colour palette. Obviously the Mega Drive, I think it had a more powerful processor, it had better sound, whatever. But the Master System was an impressive system. I mean, it looks, you know, there's no 8-bit machine could look that good. Yeah, sometimes the scrolling, there was a bit of slow down, whatever, but the Master System did have some really nice colour. Obviously the Mega Drive was like an enhanced Master System, but yeah, this is pretty good. Again, I think there's less colours on this one. The sprites are a bit smaller, which I quite like actually. Yeah, you'll see from time to time the sprites can vanish when that thing's shooting and disappear at times. But that's more just a limitation of the hardware. Obviously the console versions were a lot more expensive because they came in cartridge. The typical Mega Drive cartridge, I think, was about, we always think it was like 50 quid. I don't think they were £50. If you were going to import them, import Japanese games, then yeah, you would probably pay 50 quid or more. But I think in the main, were they not about 25 to 30 quid, something like that. Obviously, on a home computer, certainly the 8-bits, they would be, by that point, they'd kind of reached £10 for a premium game from like Ocean, whatever. You were talking £9.99 on the C64, and I think the Spectrum and Amstrad were always slightly cheaper. And interestingly, I'm very lucky to have interviewed. Oh God, I've completely forgot his name. Gary. Oh dearie me, I was going to say Gary Penn. I do apologise, Gary. I've completely forgotten his name. He was on one of the market manager for Ocean Software. Gary Bracey, yeah. And I asked him. He was the market manager for Ocean. And I mean, he was responsible for getting some of the big licenses, film licenses for Ocean. But I remember asking him, why did the Commodore 64 game cost more? It was always £1 or £2 more than the Spectrum. And he said, just because we wanted to. He says there was no other reason for charging extra money other than just because they did. He said we kind of thought that Commodore 64 people, because the system was more expensive than the Spectrum, then they used the rationale that somebody who had a Commodore 64 probably had more money than somebody who had a Spectrum. And that was the reason they charged more. So this is the Atari ST one. Now, graphically, it looks nice. Scrolling, and what this one is doing, as you can see there, it's taking about a quarter of the screen for your score. I don't know whether that was to try and force the sort of aspect ratio or the screen size to kind of replicate the arcade, because obviously home computers and consoles, they were all landscape, so when you get a vertical scrolling game it looks a bit squashed. So what they used to do to try and compensate for that, certainly when they brought out arcade like vertical shooters like 1942, when they brought these out in the Spectrum and Amstrad, they would put a big they would take a chunk of the screen away to force the screen into a kind of vertical size, which kind of lent itself better to horizontal games. The C64, for some reason, they never really did that. I mean, things like 1942 is terrible on the C64. The screen is far too squashed. Yeah, you've got plenty of room to move left and right, but given the enemies come down from the top, you've got very little space to move or time to react. This is taking absolutely forever, this one. All these games, they had this, you could probably thank Arnold Schwarzenegger. They always had these huge muscles and they had this peroxide blonde spiky hair. That was obviously the epitome of a fine specimen of a man. Now you'll notice, yeah, what I was saying there earlier on, it's got music and sound effects, but when you're firing, you can hear it kind of interferes in music a wee bit. The actual static graphics of this version are excellent, just it's let down slightly with the scrolling. If that's smooth scrolling, this would be a really good version. Wee bit slow down going on. eat that huge chicken. What the hell's going on there? There's bloody rockets and missiles coming from all over. Right, and on to the Amstrad CPC. Yeah, just what I was saying earlier on about having the score at the side that's trying to kind of make it more authentic to the screen size of the arcade one. You know, nice to see colourful graphics. I mean, the Amstrad, I think out of all the 8-bit consoles, home computers, it's got the nicest colour palette. And some games, when done properly, you can see there, yeah, you can definitely play 2-player in this one. I think it probably would have been the same for the Spectrum and C64. Don't see any reason why not. But yeah, when done properly, Amstrad had a really nice colour palette. Some of the games just look beautiful. It is let down by the scrolling, the lack of kind of software scrolling or hardware scrolling. I know in later games they did kind of fix that, but yeah, it's slightly slow, slightly sluggish, and yeah, again the scrolling just kind of takes away that really nice atmosphere that it's got with the great graphics. Again, at least this one's got music and sound effects, which is quite nice. Yeah, you almost feel that the nice graphics are at the expense of performance, because everything, yeah, the scrolling's not good. Even the sprites themselves, they're moving, I don't know what, maybe 15 frames per second, something like that, I don't know. And it just breaks up the experience, which is a shame. Quick hamburger. Hey. I'll take a very, very brief look at level. This is level 3, I think, eh? Yeah. Yeah, the choppy gameplay does ruin it slightly. Well, in fact, it ruins it quite a bit. Right, okay, now oddly, this did not appear on the Commodore Amiga. Don't know why. Not sure. So anyway, a summary of this. What did we see? With the Spectrum, Mega Drive, C64, Master System, Atari, ST, and Amstrad. Spectrum one was very, very colourful. It moved pretty quick. Nothing immediately wrong with it. There was a bit of colour clash and what have you, which you do kind of expect. But I mean, all in all, probably about the best port on the Spectrum that you could really, really hope for. Mega Drive was pretty much spot on. Slightly less colours, sound not quite as good as arcade, but yeah, it kind of ticked all the boxes. C64 one, I was pleasantly surprised at that one. Very quite fast, very colourful. It kind of looked like the arcade one. It played really well. It was almost like what it was. The version on the C64 was almost the same as the Buggy Boy version on the C64. Instead of trying to replicate it 100%, they used the strengths of the hardware and gave it its own kind of version. That's what I kind of felt they did with the C64. Master System, nice. Yeah, it did. You could tell it was struggling a bit of slowdown. Colours not quite as good as the Mega Drive. But all in all, quite a decent version. Atari ST one, it had probably some of the nicest graphics, but let down by the poor scrolling, sadly. Amstrad, very colourful, probably the most colourful 8-bit version. Again, let down with the kind of lacky speed and poor scrolling, and even the movement of the sprites. So I think in third place I'm going to go for, bronze medal, I'm going to go for the Spectrum one. In second place, the silver medal, I'm going to go for the Commodore 64 one. And no surprise, in gold medal position, the best home port of Mercs, in my opinion, is going to have to be the Sega Mega Drive. It obviously did have the most grunt, it was the most powerful bit of hardware, so no real surprise. But yeah, I mean, there was no real bad version. So anyway folks, let me know what you think of this video, and as always, thank you very much for watching.